Good morning. This is Bill from Auto Europa, Naples on a lovely Florida Tuesday. I say it's lovely because there's no birds on the wire, no sound from the roosters, just the subtle sound of essential traffic driving around all around me. It turns out that in Florida, pretty much everybody is essential. There's absolutely no difference at all from a month ago to today in terms of who's on the roads. I'm still fighting with all the nitwits doing their jerk merging. All the people are still running around out there. And it seems that the entire city of Naples somehow is essential, with the exception of Larry, the guy who owned that little Porsche Speedster we did a while back. He has a shell shop. And no matter how they cut it, there is no way that a shell shop could be deemed essential. He even tried calling them emotional support shells, and it didn't work. They just shut him down. So he's been riding around on a bicycle, bored to tears, trying to figure out how he's going to pay the rent. And that puts him in the same boat as a lot of us. I mean, hopefully the landlord here doesn't see the rent as an essential thing. We'll see if we can talk him out of that. I doubt it. Anyway, so it's day 21 of the global economic shutdown brought about by this coronavirus thing. I'm still doing the whiskey therapy pretty religiously, and it's working quite well for me. It's made me quite chipper in an otherwise miserable frame of mind. I will say that the social distancing really hasn't altered my life much. I generally social distance anyway. I did go to Trader Joe's the other day, which was fascinating because they made me wait in line to get in. They're only letting so many people in at once. And there was some guy there in a hazmat suit with a thing of, the spray they put on. Somehow they still had a supply of disinfecting spray. So there was a guy sitting there with a World War I era looking gas mask, and he sprayed me down with that crap as I went inside. And it was a nice shopping experience. There weren't people all over me. I got what I needed and I left. But in it, as I was walking around, there was what had to be a 300-plus pound woman shopping near me, and she was wearing one of these little masks and latex gloves. And, who's kidding who? I mean, all of a sudden a little virus comes out of China or wherever the hell it came from, and these 300-plus pound people suddenly care about their health. So, at least it's accomplished that. But I have a feeling that the minute this thing is over, those people are going to go back to power slamming ho-hos in the 7-Eleven parking lot and living life the way that we all do. In fact, it doesn't sound like a bad thing at all. I might end up joining them. What difference does it make at this point? Anyway, what do I have? I have this 2013 Mercedes-Benz SLK Roadster. This is the third generation of SLK, and frankly, the final. It went on to becoming the SLC a few years later. The last one they're going to build is in 2020, but it's essentially the same car that came out in 2011. And even if Mercedes-Benz sold a ton of these things back in the early 2000s when everything just seemed different and wonderful, sales have been on the decline for some time. Even in 13, when this thing came out, they just weren't selling that many of these things. And that trend has continued. So they're going to do away with it and come out with something else, which is fine. Okay, so who does this compete with? Well, we can first of all say it was birthed by the Miata. I mean, you have to give the Miata credit for that. Bringing back the two-seat Roadster led to other two-seat Roadsters, the SLK amongst them. But the two main competitors, we're not going to count Audi with the TT. We're just not. Audi is such an afterthought. The main competitors for this car are Porsche with the Boxster and BMW with the Z4. And I think the best thing that I can say about this SLK is I like it better than the Z4. Obviously, I think I do prefer the Boxster in terms of driving dynamics. But I prefer the SLK in terms of luxury and feel, not sporty feel, because it certainly doesn't outperform the Boxster in that regard, but feel in terms of overall quality. It just feels like a more substantial car than the Boxster does, and I think it's a terrific car overall, but we're going to get into it. So is it a hairdresser's car? Yeah, probably. By this third generation, Mercedes did try to macho it up a little bit. They gave it this front end that's very, God, the sound of traffic out there. Anyway, they did give it this very sort of macho front end that's reminiscent of the SLS AMG, maybe a mixture of that and the SL. All of a sudden, Mercedes found angles and squares and sharp edges, but that does flow into a Z4-esque humpy back that doesn't match the front. I suppose it does. I think it looks all right, but it still seems a little bit strange to go from big square angles into a flowing rear, a smoothy, circulary, rounded thing. SLK basically stands for sport, lightweight, and short, which, the sport thing it's got over 300 horsepower. The short thing it's shorter than a VW Golf or Corolla by like 17 inches shorter than a Corolla. This is a very short car, but light, not so much. It's not quite unlike those that lady I saw at Trader Joe's. It's kind of a portly car in its own way. It's not light. But it is what it is. Anyway, let's get into this thing. This one does have the AMG Sport package. It gives you nothing mechanical, but it does give you these 5-star AMG badged wheels. It gives you sporty or ground effects. It gives you twice pipes. Look how wide they are at the back. Big separation. Little spoiler. All kinds of little styling cues that look nice. You could get an AMG version of this car with a V8, which has to be pretty impressive. Okay, so with the top up, we can move that dividing panel forward, and all of a sudden you get a pretty good amount of cargo space. Anything you can fit under that is fine, no problems at all. But don't incur with it if you want to put the top down. So if you have this back and you put something up here, it's going to end very badly. So get what you can under there, put that divider back, and the top will go down no problem. You can even fit a set of golf clubs in there. Not the one Rodney Dangerfield had in Caddyshack, but a smaller set, maybe something you'd walk with. So space isn't that bad. In fact, not much different from what would be in many 4-seat convertibles. Have a look under the hood. Oh, we'll find the release in here somewhere. Okay, so 2012 saw a big upgrade in the Mercedes V6. For whatever reason, Mercedes seems to come up with V6 engines at the same frequency other companies come up with like new cup holder designs. I mean, they can crank one out in no time at all. This one went from a 90-degree V6 to a 60-degree, which makes it smoother. So instead of being wider like that, it got a little bit more V'd, and that makes it a little bit more like an inline 6, which is about as smooth as it gets. So a nice smooth engine in this car. They added direct injection, they added VVT stuff. It gets about 29 miles to the gallon on the highway, which is terrific, and still has a ton of low-end torque and a pretty good horsepower rating. So compared to the SLK 250, which uses this little buzzy 4-cylinder turbo, this is truly, I think, the best engine of choice. I mean, obviously you could get into that, in this generation, you could get into that V8. It wasn't supercharged, I don't believe, but had about 430 horsepower, which is great, but I think this engine better suited the car in terms of balance. So, a very good setup under the hood. That's made it to a 7-speed automatic transmission that we'll get into as we drive it. But anyway, everything looks nice and proper under the hood. What you'd expect to see in a nice, well-kept car. This one does have the lighting package that gives you these sort of bi-xenon headlights that steer into like a tucker. You turn the wheel and the light steer towards where you're going. So nice feature. Has this little LED strip on the bottom so people know you spent some money on a car. It's got all kinds of mesh and fancy looking aerodynamic stuff at the front, part of that sport package. And, of course, a big star in the hood. This one also has the panoramic sunroof option. This car has 3 different top options. You can have no top at all. You can have this panoramic top, which is about a $500 option. Or then for $2,500, you could have the Magic Sky, which you would press a button and some magnetic shit would come together to make it dim. Kind of a neat setup, really exciting for the first 2 minutes that you use it, and then at a certain point you realize you just spent $2,500 on something a roller shade could have fixed. So to me, this polycarbonate top is probably the best option in terms of, you know, if you're ordering it new, in terms of getting the most for your buck, that's probably the way to go. Used, you might want the Magic Sky because it's not going to add that much to the price, but if you could find one. And again, those nice big look at the size of the manhole covers behind the wheels there. Those are big ass brakes on this car, and really do a nice job pulling it down. Let's see, this thing is keyless go, so we should be able to run the top without getting inside. Let's see if I press and hold the unlock button, if it does that. Yeah, it does. You see the back windows go down, the trunk comes up from the reverse, and down goes that folding hardtop. Takes about 20 seconds. Very, very nice. Unlike other Benzes, you can't do that at speed. The car has to be stationary. Why that is, I don't know. It does give you these nice little hoops behind the seats for rollover protection. Lovely stuff. This is the, you can see it in the rearview mirror. That's the Parktronic feature that lights up and will beep if you get close to stuff, but it is what it is. Hard to see in this light, but the Sport package adds red ambient lighting. You can kind of get a glimpse of it there. That does look nice at night. This one does have the Bengal red leather, very you know, attractive looking seats in this car. Nice color. I like the red on red. Reminds me of an old Corvette. It has the walnut wood trim package, so definitely signed off on by the Sierra Club. They're going to love all the real wood in this car, and everything lovely in there. I like the little flat bottom steering wheel. It makes you think you're getting in a Formula One car. Alright, keys in my pocket. We have keyless go, so just foot on the brake and tap that guy, and the whole thing fires to life. Get my seatbelt on so it'll stop beeping at me. No birds up in those trees today, thank God. I'm sure the nest is still there, but I haven't seen them. Run the windows down. Okay, so in these little stainlessy, chromy looking tubes, you have your two gauges. Well, there's four, but it just looks like two. You've got your 150 mile an hour speedo, which, you know, is not ambitious. This thing will max out at 155 governed, so it's pretty peppy. Over here you've got your tach and your water temp, and of course you have your fuel gauge at the bottom of the speedo there. In the center you have a driver information thing. You can scroll through that. That's going to give you your Bluetooth, attention assist, tire settings, odo, that sort of thing. You know, the steering wheel, very, very sporty. You've got these grippy things at the 10 and 2. You've got the lovely walnut. You know, this is all very Mercedes and very lovely. You know, they give you this hint of sportiness, but unlike the Boxster, it's not really the theme of the car. Luxury has as much to do with it as anything. You do get flippity paddles here, so if you want to put it in manual mode, you can bang your way through the 7 gears, but this transmission doesn't really like that the way that the BMW or Porsche does. You know, that's got all that fancy double clutch stuff. The Mercedes doesn't, and these things are more of a suggestion than a true shift. So if you want to be sporting, you're better off just leaving it in the sport setting. We're in E now. Let's go into sport. That's with that button there. You see we go through a manual, economy, sport, and use your right foot to shift gears and it'll work better for you. I do love the vents in this car. They remind me of the ones in the old 123 Benz, like the 300Ds and whatnot. They're very cool. They look like something you would have seen in a 70s Boeing, and they are awfully pretty. This one does have the analog clock option up there. That's something they robbed from Porsche, that whatever the hell they call, I can't remember what Porsche called, it doesn't matter, Sport Chrono. But anyway, this is just a clock in this one. It's not going to give you your lap times, but it looks pretty sporty. And there is the front Parktronic thing. So as you get your front bumper close to something, like a 400-pound woman coming out of Trader Joe's, that thing will light up and let you know how close you are to her. This one also has the multimedia pad. I think we have a window sticker here, actually. Let's see this thing. You wouldn't believe what this car costs. Let's have a look at that. So yeah, with the base price of like 55 grand, all of a sudden a few options puts it up into the $66,000 level, which is not cheap. I mean, this is definitely not an economy car. Very, very pricey. We've got our Parktronic with advanced parking guidance. You've got the analog clock on dash top. That was $250 for that little thing. Push button start, the rear deck spoiler, the chrome hood fin covers, the trim package, which gives you all this lovely burl walnut instead of the aluminum trim, the lighting package for the bi-xenons, the multimedia, and the sport package. So pretty well equipped car. Get that back in, and that does give you this 11 speaker Harman Kardon system that frankly sounds great. Let's see what we've got here. We're going to radio. So far I've got nothing. There we go. You gotta love it. You got the 80s going even on classic rewind. So very, very nice stuff. You can control the volume also with your steering wheel and different stuff. It's all very nice. It also has a voice command that can be used with the radio or the navigation. So let's see if that works. 8.
Please wait. Please say the name of the state.
It's getting me back in the navigation. I don't want navigation. I want the radio. Doesn't matter. Anyway, there it is. You've got, unlike BMW's iDrive, I think this is a little bit more simple to use, even if I do hate it. But you do have this big, whatever you call it, the joystick here that you can move around that gets you into your audio settings. You've got your FM, AM, satellite disc, memory card, music registry, all this stuff. You have a little SD slot, everything a snowflake might need to entertain himself. So that's all fantastic stuff. It also gets you back into your navigation. Let's see if we can see a map. There we go. So it's got a 3D map. You can make it 2D, whatever you want. It adds topography and other stuff. A nice advanced map unit in this for 2013. You get your Bluetooth. It has a video system. If you're parked, you can put a DVD in there. You can watch Behind the Green Door or whatever it is you happen to get off on. System. There's a second analog clock. This one virtual. So you definitely know you're in a luxury car when you've got 2 analog clocks. And you can go through and scroll and change all your settings. You have direct access buttons for the command unit there, cockpit management and data system, in-dash CD changer, telephone stuff. Mercedes heat scarf. Now that's a nice feature. It doesn't really matter down here because we don't have very many cold days, but if you're, up north or somewhere that does, this wafts warm air out of that little vent in the seat. It gives you heated seats as well. So even on a chilly day, you can put your top down and feel pretty damn comfortable, and that's nice stuff. That's this guy here. That's the air scarf, and that's the heated seat. So we're not going to bother with that here. We can turn off the traction control if we want to get the car sideways. That's going to help us do that. Oh yeah, we're driving, we'll do that. Eco, this is the thing where the car shuts off at red lights, which I hate, so I'm going to turn that off. And this will turn off the parking sensors if you're going through a Dunkin' Donuts and it's beeping at you. It might be annoying. So, and here you've got some cup holders, lovely. Here's a little place where you can run your top and your 4-window or 2-window. I guess there are 4, so let's see. And we got 2 up. If I hold up on the button, no, I can't get the rear ones to go up, so they only work with the top. And then in here, we've got another spot. We've got your auxiliary input and a very nice place to put a 9mm or 357 revolver. Let's go for a spin and turn the traction control back on for the moment and let the engine heat up. So I have to say that I do quite like the driving dynamics of this car. Even if I'm going to say you hop in this thing, you're heading to the Hairdressers convention, one town over, you put the top down. It is not an excruciating car to take on a trip. The seats are very comfortable. They're lovely to ride in. But a nice little blat from the engine. We'll get past the sun here in a minute. We have any heat in there? Yeah, we're starting to. The steering is a mishmash of, you know, connections and no connections, so it's heavily computer controlled, but it is directly connected to the wheels. So Mercedes does a pretty nice job of blending all that together, where you have a nice comfortable ride on the highway, but when you want to start driving a little bit more sporty, well, it does a nice job of that too. Look at all the cars on the road. Wow. Alright, so a lovely cacophony of sound out of those twice pipes. I have to say, that's definitely different from prior SLKs. They didn't give you that kind of throttle response, and definitely didn't give you that kind of sound. We'll wait to see if we can get around any of these guys. Very nice shifting on its own in the sport mode. Can't see myself doing any better in manual. And that is a very peppy feeling car, I have to say. 0 to 60 is in the 5s, 5.4 seconds. I want to say a quarter mile time in the mid to high 13s. So the car does get up and move. I mean, 302 horsepower is not far off from, in fact, it's exactly where the SL500 of prior years was. Could do that all day. You know, so there it is. I mean, that is going to give the Boxster and the Z4 a little bit of a run for their money. Obviously, the Boxster is considerably quicker, I think by a second to 60. But, you know, for the vast majority of people, you know, the sportiness that I just felt is going to be more than adequate. And on top of that, you definitely get more, I don't know, you get more panache than you do in the Boxster. You get more of a luxury feel. You get more of that somber Benz, you know, down to every square inch you feel like you're in more of a luxury car. So you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. The Boxster doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like it has the same level of quality. At least in terms of substantialness that this car does. In many, many ways, this is a smaller SL. It feels just as stable to me driving around. And very nice steering, very nice brakes. I have to say, I do secretly like driving these SLKs, especially in this third generation form. Mercedes really got their shit together by the time this one came out. Anyway, I won't bore you as we're sitting at the light. We'll end it there. You know, it's still probably long enough, this video. I try to shorten them, but they still stay long. We'll come back with something interesting tomorrow, I hope. I'm trying to find more stuff on the lot to have a bit of fun with. I'm on a buying moratorium, so you know, as cars go down in price because of this artificial crisis, I'm trying not to stock up on too many, so we'll have to review some of the crap we have hanging around. Really appreciate you having a look today. Thank you for that. Everybody hang in there, and we will see you with the next one. Take care.